This is Paul Lennon, former Legionary of Christ, religious and priest, commenting on my autobiography, well, my experience before, during, and after the Legion of Christ. This is the number 54 of the English version of tapes, and it pertains to chapter 15 of my autobiography or of the reflections. Chapter 15 is called Reflecting on Sexual Abuse in the Legion, whereby I will also talk about the general atmosphere regarding sexuality in the Legion of Christ. And that's what I've been talking about the last session. Today, I will uh, try to be as brief and summarize the latter part of this chapter. Most legionaries will attest that the atmosphere surrounding us regarding sexuality and chastity was eerily antiseptic, like that sterile smell of ether or something you got when entering a hospital back in the day. Nuestro Padre Maciel sowed communal belief that the Legion had been protected from impurity by a special gift from the Blessed Virgin Mary. Thus, purity was a given, and impure thoughts, feelings, or actions were unusual, out of place, and unexpected in the Legion. It was an extreme case of don't ask, don't tell, or denial, or cover up, or secrecy. I know of some guys who were kicked out because of voyeurism, like looking into the showers or dressing rooms when other members were changing, or for other offenses that to mature eyes might not appear so serious. But the superiors would never mention these transgressions. Sex was taboo, hidden like the pasted over nudes in the Enciclopedia dell'Arte in our library. According to the rules or norms, we were allowed 16 millimeter or Super 8 movies a year, never in a public theater, but in our own house. The projectionist and the superior preview the movie beforehand. Whenever a remotely erotic or simply romantic scene appeared, a card was inserted between the lens and the film to block out the bad, impure images. There's a standing joke about the Irish book on sex. All the pages are blank. This reflects our Legion's sexual education. We received no explanation of the physiology of the sexes, drives, attraction, falling in love, and love-making. Who would talk about something as repulsive and impure as that? Novice instructor, rector, superior, and spiritual director Rafael Aromi, or obsessive-compulsive assistant, superior, and spiritual director Octavio Acevedo, or not too bright rector, superior, and spiritual director Alfredo Torres, or dog lover and horticulturist, rector, superior, and spiritual director at Via Aurelia 677, Juan Manuel Dueñas Rojas? Where would you find a manual, a booklet, or even some pictures? I'm sure some creative souls did their own research, but not me. I had enough with my constant doubts of faith. On the other hand, I must admit there was a helpful book back about how to handle adolescent changes available in Salamanca. It was called Te vas haciendo hombre, and it was written, I'm sure, by some French priest or something, or so. You are becoming a man. I felt I was a normal and healthy adolescent with normal urges, practicing self-control and abstinences. There might be the occasional wet dream. This would be part of confession and spiritual direction. Father Dueñas, spiritual director, rector, and superior in Rome. I keep repeating these little formulas to show that they're in total contravention of canon law. Vatican intervention in more recent years tried to correct this, but I don't know how much they have succeeded. He made the recommendation regarding my problems. Be more careful and try not to let that happen again. I'm glad Irish Christian brother Moore in the 7th grade had explained things a little better back in St. Vincent's. So regarding sex, everything was silence. It was not mentioned among us, no education, neutral and frozen. As a heterosexual, I never felt any intrusion from superior or peer. Father Maciel, in his later confrontation with me, appeared to express his sentiments. Women, because of their sexuality, are the root of all evil. Because we were forbidden from talking about any personal problems among ourselves, I have no idea of how others fared. Those struggling with their sexual identity or with homosexual feelings. Testimonies of ex-legionaries now demonstrate that some members, no matter their orientation, were sexually approached by unscrupulous superiors, novice masters, and spiritual directors. But many of us had no inkling or anything improper happening. This enigma is partially solved by the testimony of one of the original accusers of Maciel, Jose Perez Olvera, who exited as I was entering. He says, it seemed that nothing mattered more than the virtue of purity. We were wholesome boys, but they drummed the idea of purity into us to such a degree that we ended up being fixated on it. Was it Freud who said, what resists persists? What you resist persists. For us, everything was a sin. The obsession with offending God was so great that I couldn't even touch my body when I went to the bathroom. I ended up going to a Trappist monastery next door to have someone hear my confession. This was way back, first group in Comillas, Cobres, northern Spain. This from the time I was a boy, from the time I entered at age 11. And I want to tell you that in Rome we were surrounded by paintings of nudes. A virgin breastfeeding a child was a sin. It was aberrant. The hypocrisy got to the point that they would put little pieces of paper on art boot pictures so that things would not be seen. Something which produced the opposite effect, says Jose Antonio. I lived in anguish. One could never feel serene. It was as if God had not created sex. And to top it all off, Father Maciel was a total hypocrite. It did not matter to him that he had destroyed us. I know one of my legionary colleagues was seriously troubled for years for having smuggled a girly magazine into the seminary. Once discovered, he was haunted by his superior's warning that such an act of impurity demonstrated a serious moral shortcoming which seriously jeopardized his legionary and priestly vocation. That legion-induced guilt hung like a sword of Damocles over his conscience for many years. He was led to believe that if he abandoned the legion, he would lose his priesthood. His depraved inclination would only make it impossible for him to carry on as a priest, for no bishop would ever accept such a deviant priest into his diocese. Another ex-legionary colleague, may he rest in peace, Hector Carlos, a good colleague, called me out of the blue after 37 years. He told me that when the Legion was trying to dump him, his spiritual director gratuitously announced, you don't have a vocation to celibacy because you masturbate. Hector Carlos was quite the little smart guy. Who told you I masturbate? Retorted my recently recovered companion. Hasta la vista. Until next time. Thank you for listening. And as I say, I've continued insisting with these more or less useful or useless videos because occasionally some of the former legionaries have told me to keep doing it. So I'm being obedient. Maybe also to the Spirit.